All right, guys. Well, I'm back today taking a look at a brand new cartridge that just hit the market, as well as an upper assembly to put it in. Now, generally, I don't review the latest and greatest cartridges that keep popping up because this channel generally focuses on high value and budget items that actually work. And a lot of times new cartridges are fairly expensive, hard to find, and the uppers or rifles that fire them are also a little bit more difficult and hard to find. Now, this was actually flipped on its head because PSA owns AAC and they collaborated on the launch of a high value upper, complete setup and cartridge all at once. And we'll be talking about the specs and features of this upper, its performance down at the range, a little bit more about the cartridge and how it also performs down at the range. And in a future video, which we'll post in a couple of days, we actually put the 3.3 ARC head to head against the 300 Blackout in a few different tests and talk about the advantages and disadvantages of both rounds. So if you're new to the channel, definitely consider subscribing, and if you've already been here, click that notification bell so you don't miss that video. I'm really excited to finish editing, testing, and posting that one. Now let's start off by talking about what the 338 ARC is in a quick nutshell. The 338 ARC is a subsonic and supersonic cartridge that fits through an AR-15 lower receiver that allows you to get about 1.5 times the amount of energy as a 300 Blackout on target because the bullet weight is larger. Now a lot of these rounds are capped off right at 1,000 feet per second for subsonic loads, which means the only way to get more power is to increase bullet weight. And a lot of times when you do that, you start stepping up to the AR-10 platform, and it opens up a whole new can of worms when it comes to mag compatibility or lower assemblies. A lot of guys might have a 223 or 5.56 lower that they want to adopt for hunting purposes or shoot subsonic loads. It's just more convenient to grab this complete upper assembly, drop it on an AR-15 lower, grab a mag, and you're good to go. Now, we are looking at the Palmetto State Armory 8.5-inch pistol length upper, and this MSRP on this guy is actually pretty good, $399 with the included 338 ARC mag. So that gives you a really good option that you can grab and drop on any complete AR-15 lower assembly. In this case, we have it on a PSA pistol lower, and it made it up perfectly. So no issues when it comes to compatibility there. I also love the fact that it is an 8.5-inch barrel, which is really optimized for me for close quarters suppressor use in different hunting applications, especially with a can attached to the end of it. And again, for me, I'm primarily going to be running subsonic ammo because this is truly a great option for hard-hitting up-close subsonic action. Now, the bullet weight on these guys are 300 grain versus the standard subsonic load of 220 when it comes to 300 Blackout, again, giving you 1.5 times the amount of energy. So that means it's going to hit harder up close. Let's talk about the specs and features of this upper, then we'll talk a little bit more about its performance. So we've got the 8.5-inch barrel length on this guy, and it's going to have that pistol length gas system. The barrel is the 4150 chromoly vanadium steel, and it works out really good. The barrel profile is going to be like a medium style profile, and it is going to be threaded 5/8 by 24 because it is that larger caliber round. So all of those 308, 300 Blackout muzzle device adapters for your can or muzzle brakes will work on this, but just know you're not going to be able to run a 30 cal can on this because this is a wider bullet than a 300 Blackout. You will have to step up to a 9mm or 45 cal can. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Twist weight on the barrel is going to be 1 in 8, and surrounding that barrel is going to be a rail system and gas system really optimized for this 8.5-inch setup. The rail system comes all the way to the end, giving you 3 M-lock slots on the sides and on the bottom, monolithic pick rail at the top, anti-rotation tabs, and enough room to throw a wrench on there to attach whatever you need to attach to the end. It also has an adjustable and locking gas block if you wanted to swap it around for different loads, but I found that the supersonic and subsonic loads are generally putting the same amount of force back into the system, so you never really have to tune it when you're swapping between different loads. Now, at the time of launch, AAC offers 2 different rounds, a supersonic round and a subsonic round, and they are very affordable considering this is a brand new cartridge that just hit the market. For reference, a 300 Blackout round is going to be about a third cheaper depending on whether you select supersonic or subsonic, and most of the supersonic 300 Blackout rounds are going to be half the price of the supersonic 338 ARC rounds, just so you get a good representation of what it's going to cost to run this thing. Now up the front, it generally comes with an A2 style flash hider, but I pop that off almost immediately because I think these things are just designed to run suppressed. Now when we get back to the upper receiver itself, the mate and lockup with the rail system is great. Never had any issues with that. The anodization and finish is really nice. Standard forward assist, dust cover, and charging handle on this guy. And when we are looking at the upper itself, it's actually forged 7075 T6 aluminum upper, so it's going to meet all of those mil specs when it comes to that. Now the bolt is actually an FA profile bolt carrier group with 9310 steel bolt. It's shot peened. The gas key is hardened to USGI specifications, and it's fastened with grade 8 screws. And then it's also going to be a mil spec 8620 M16 profile carrier, and that's going to be nitride treated for added corrosion resistance and just an overall good running BCG, and it functions great down at the range. Now let's talk about a little bit reliability. And a lot of times when you get a cartridge like this, or you get a new upper assembly chambered in a new cartridge, reliability is always going to be a big question. Now I haven't run thousands of rounds through it, but everything I have put through it works out great. I want to give a huge shout out to AAC for providing a lot of the ammo, but I also went to my LGS and grabbed a lot of the Hornady and ran some of the Hornady, and it ran great as well. So no issues when it comes to feed or function. The ejection pattern seemed fairly consistent, and one of the highlights that the 338 ARC cartridge claims is the fact that it's a very, very stubby cartridge, and when they press that large bullet in there, the powder doesn't have a lot of room to kind of slosh around or tilt over. It really compacts nicely, so it's going to give you more consistent charge, which really lends to better spreads across the board when it comes to velocity numbers, and that also lends to better accuracy and performance. And I found that moving on to the accuracy portion of this review, this was insanely accurate. Now, with the red dot, I shot this for groups at 50 yards, and they were darn near stacking on top of each other. So for me, this is 100 yard and in gun. You can probably take it out further because of the 338 ARC, but with the red dot and with the barrel length, I have set this up to be optimized right at 50 yards out to 100 yards for general hunting and close quarters application. So I've got it sighted dead in at 50 yards. And then when I was running the subsonic ammo, I was doing about an 8 or 9 inch hold over and was plink and steel very consistently, very combat effective, very hunting effective out to 100 yards. So accuracy, they really killed it. No issues whatsoever. I may stretch this out further in the future, but again, this is an 8.5 inch barrel pistol upper running subsonic ammo. Guys, 100 yards and in, this thing is going to kill it in the accuracy department, and there's going to be no issues there. Now, when it comes to recoil management, this thing is more stout than a 300 Blackout. And I noticed up close when I was doing transitions from target to target or mag dumping, I felt this thing want to climb a little bit. Even with the can on the end, I felt it wanting to climb and jostle me around a lot more than a 300 Blackout. So think about that when you're grabbing this. If you're looking for something optimized for like 50 yards and in, and you're talking about slightly smaller game or personal defense, a 300 Blackout may be a better option when it comes to that, but the 338 ARC puts so much more energy on target. Again, 50% more energy, 1.5 times the amount of energy that you're going to expect actually on target than the standard 300 Blackout, and it hits pretty hard, and you'll see that demonstrated in the upcoming video. So let me know your thoughts in the comments section below, whether you're thinking about adopting the new 338 ARC cartridge. Again, I was a little leery at first, but after testing it, I can definitely see why people really like this cartridge and why people are excited about getting one. It makes a perfect little hunting package, especially with things that are a little bit larger than a doe, like a full-size buck up close or a hog that may be running through the woods. Having something like this that's nimble, compact, that throws a massive 300 grain projectile that still all comes from a small AR-15 low receiver, it's pretty darn cool. Now, again, you're going to be running some type of can on the end. Make sure your can is rated for that. And make sure you're not running a 30 cal can, since the bullet is actually a little bit wider than a 30 cal. Again, .338. So a 9 mil can or a jack of all trades can, something like this 46 cal Resilient or maybe a 36 cal can, Those are all going to be really good. I ran them and they sound hearing safe with subsonic ammo, and it definitely deadens down that noise on the supersonic ammo. Huge shout out to PSA for sending this out to the channel for us to test and evaluate. I don't have to send it back, so I'll continue to test it and let you guys know how it performs. And again, a huge shout out to AAC. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.